All right, hello party people. My name is Matt Rokes, and I am with Athlete Development Project, and you're listening to another episode of Oak Performance Radio. Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Oak Performance Radio. I'm your host, Adam Lane. If you're new to the show, our goal here is to create some content, some fantastic content for athletes, parents, and coaches. We tell stories, have laughs, and go into everything that is the end game of athletic performance, helping athletes achieve their optimal performance and be the best they can possibly be. Enjoy the show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Oak Performance Radio. I'm your host, Adam Lane. With me today, from beautiful LeClaire, Iowa, Dr. Matt Rokes. Dr. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, thanks, sir. I know you're a busy guy. We have fought through some technology this morning, Matt, but we have persevered, and here we are. Matt, for the tens of people that listen to the show who might not know who you are and why you're such a big deal, tell them who you are and why you're such a big deal.
All right, like Adam said, my name is Matt Rokes, and I'm a 14-year veteran in the PT community, especially in this area. And then about year 6 or 7 into the PT profession, I decided to kind of try and fill the need. We'd seen that with a lot of our patients about how do we get them back to playing sports, and how do we do it safely, and look at all the things that can kind of hinder some athletes. So depending on age, gender, all those specific things. And so we kind of started to fit the need and fill the need with what we thought was the performance side of it, and it's kind of grown from there. So now we work with between 40, 50, 60 kids a week right now in a 1,200 square foot place in the PT clinic where I'm at right now. So it actually works out really well.
Matt, are you doing? Is this? I mean, because it's PT, are we talking mostly rehab from injury stuff? That's.
It's kind of both, to be honest with you. So what we do, especially with our athletes, so I actually work for some orthopedic surgeons. And we have Dr. Kristen Darmafal, who's an amazing orthopedic surgeon. She played college soccer, and then she went to Minnesota and Wisconsin. She worked at Ohio State, and now she's in private practice with us. But for the kids that get hurt, they go through a full process, like say it's an ACL reconstruction that she has to do. They'll go through the rehab with me for 6 months. And then we take them through another 2 months in our performance program. So that she pushes them pretty hard. I mean, and that's honestly the thing that is a misconception of how hard PT should be. And then, what should come with that to tell us, objectively where they're at and how do we progress them. And then the other part, I would say it's almost 50-50 kids that I've worked with in the PT side of it. Then 50% is we've had some strategic partnerships with some volleyball programs. I'm actually going to start talking with a basketball program in the next couple of days with a kid that she's running this thing called the New Threat within our area, and they're growing rapidly. And so we have some opportunities to kind of help out. I think that's the biggest thing. Where can we fit the need?
Yeah. So I want to take this a couple different ways. Matt, it's interesting. I'm seeing more issues, and listeners, I apologize because if you listen to the show regularly, you've heard me complain about this often. Like our business is 13 years old, but I started coaching kids in 2002. I feel like we're seeing more of this stuff now than we ever have, in the way of the major ACLs. I'm amazed with how much of our business has turned into similar to like your little return to play after that initial PT piece. Cause a lot of PT that isn't like you. Cause it's funny to look at your, watch your Instagram and stuff like that. It doesn't look like a physical therapy clinic. It looks like a gym. Like I think that's my favorite part. It doesn't look like where, my dad would go for his shoulder rehab, after blood, which you probably would do. However, there's more than just like, hey, we're going to lift this 2-pound weight, 30 times, and do 2 sets. And then we're going to move on to this next thing. Like you guys bring it all together. What in your professional opinion why do you have so much business, Matt? You shouldn't have so much business, but kids screw themselves up. What's going on?
It's because us parents can't figure out how to just let kids be kids. The exposures that the kids have now is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times more than what we were experiencing when we were growing up. And so when you have that many exposures, the kids just get broken down. And so we're seeing that has become a problem. I mean, the youngest ACL I've worked with is 10. And that's that's just young, and that's so hard to get them to understand, what the pain process is and what's to be expected. And it's difficult to work with somebody that's that young, because it's the biggest injury they've ever had. And so you're seeing what we're seeing, and it's all over the country. Sports, youth sports is a $15 billion industry. So adults see that as an opportunity, and so then they want to capitalize on the opportunity. I understand that. However, now we're putting it as these kids are getting hurt more. And then all the people are wondering why. It's like, well, because they played 60 or 70, baseball games in a 4-month time span. That's why they're getting hurt. That's why we're seeing more, Tommy John in like a 14-year-old, 12-year-old. Or we're seeing like avulsion fractures and all those different things. It's just because the amount that we're requiring these kids to do is significantly higher than it's ever been.
I have so many questions.
Yeah.
ACL is 10-year-old. Can I ask male or female? 10-year-old.
Female.
Female 10-year-old. Sport?
Soccer.
She was playing soccer at 10 years old. Torn ACL.
Mind you, this is also a kid that she was also playing 2 other sports at the same time. So she was doing 3 sports, soccer, volleyball, and I think it was basketball, but she was doing them all at the same time. So then what happens is it's just fatigue. The muscle can't keep up. And so then we're upset at the fact that she got hurt. It's like, well, what did you expect to happen? Because this is how this works. The body can only take so much, and then we have injuries.
So tell me if you're seeing this is what I'm noticing within this realm of things, because back in my day we had no club anything. It didn't exist. A little Sycamore, Illinois, just town of 8,000 people back in the day. I think in Chicago they did, but out way 60 miles west we did not. All of a sudden the club thing picks up more and more. And you start to see more of these single sport athletes who specialize, and sometimes too early, in my humble opinion, possibly yours too. And kids start to specialize down. But now research has come out saying, hey, the more diverse your kid is, the more sports that they play, the better blah, 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 blah is. And that can have a thing. And now, because there aren't seasons anymore, because I played football, and football was from August to November, and then it was done. And then we trained, we worked out, we did things. Baseball, I played baseball, and that was from February to May, and unless you played summer ball, and then obviously in whatever high school summer, blah blah blah. But now everything, like clubs. If you want to play lacrosse, but you also want to play soccer, you can't just play soccer in the fall and lacrosse in the spring. They overlap, through this and that, because the seasons are crazy long and yada, yada, yada. And you have these kids. So now I'm seeing more kids playing more sports, but they're not multi-sport athletes. They are multi-sport athletes, but they're multi-sport at the same time. It's not like they shift through the year.
No, and it's one of those things, and you're exactly right. We used to have it down in our area too. I mean, with Camden's Pleasant Valley. So my oldest son is 11; he'll be 12 in about a month from today, actually. So he plays basketball, football, and then baseball. And so the nice thing that we've done as parents in our community is we kind of started our own programs, our own teams, and then we have control over the seasons. However, what we did have, because baseball is a big thing, especially in our area, is baseball practice started in January, and then we still had basketball until the end of February. So we were doing two practices a week for basketball, and then one baseball practice, and then we'd have a Saturday full of games. And it's a lot. And I think we've managed it pretty well in our area and for our teams, but that's not how it always is. The multiple sports, and you also have to think about, they're all using the same musculature. I mean, these kids are running around, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to play basketball, and I'm going to play, another court sport, I'm going to play soccer, do all these things." Then people wonder why they have Seaver's disease. It's because you beat the heck out of them. You didn't require them to stretch. You haven't done, and this is, I don't want people to think that I'm just a supplements person, but sometimes that you need to have them make sure they're having calcium, they're having vitamin D. Are they having enough protein? And that's something that we've started to evolve with, especially with our athletes. And we talk to them, what are you doing to begin your day to help support the rest of your body. It's like gasoline in a car. And we push that on all these kids to make sure they understand that. And these kids, some of them are like, well, I got up too late. Find a grab and go option. Fairlife makes a great one. Muscle milk, I don't really care what it is. It's got to be something that has a lot of protein in it, and just make sure you're doing that. So there's not a great answer, and honestly, it's only going to get worse until some parents just kind of start to step in and say, this is what we're going to do. I think that you see a lot of professional athletes. You think about Christian McCaffrey. He's very notorious for playing multiple sports. Cooper DeJean played multiple sports. He had a pick six in the Super Bowl. So he did that. He's an Iowa kid, so I had to bring that up. I mean, I think that was needed, but there's a lot of them, and I think it's one of those things where try and get them to understand that this is only going to help you, and especially for these young girls, we know that they're an increased risk for getting hurt, especially in those tier 1 sports. So we know that soccer and volleyball, basketball, there's more risk. And there's a lot of things, especially as they start to get up into the, having the period stuff, that all plays a factor. And I don't think we always recognize that and try and do the little things, which is a big part of what we do in our own sports performance program, is that we come in and do tissue mobility, and then we do hip, strengthening. We do specific things to make sure that they're going to, be doing that at least twice a week. And then sometimes we'll prescribe that for home. Like, hey, you need to do this. Your knees get to go a little bit knock-kneed when we're doing some depth drops or when we're trying to do broad jumps. These are some of the ways that we can try and prevent this as much as we can, at least decrease the risk.
Yeah. Is there, because, and I think my oldest is 10, my youngest is I'm sorry, my oldest is 13, my youngest is 10. You have 3 kids?
3 kids, 2 boys and 1 girl.
Okay, there we go. The youngest being the girl?
Oh, yeah. Baby
the princess. There we go. There we go.
Yes.
The direction we've taken, I think Heather and I have done well. And obviously, not that this is crazy, but like, I love sport. My kids have enjoyed sport. But also oftentimes it's hard. Like I want them to learn the life lessons that we all learn and, in loving sport. And, we've got them into good programs where like they have had seasons and they're able to, turn the football switch off and turn the wrestling switch on. And then we turn the wrestling switch off and now we turned on the soccer switch, or now they're doing lacrosse. And dude, lacrosse is fun. Do you guys have any lacrosse in the Quad Cities? It's so much fun. Holy cow.
Yeah, not much. No, we don't.
Okay. You said your kid does football, baseball?
So football, basketball, and then baseball, but baseball isn't something he practices a lot. So he's finding also the sides of it where he doesn't play as much.
So he's got the hand-eye coordination with the whole baseball thing. He's got the football, the physicality piece. You combine them, you have lacrosse. So, there we go. So basically now he can go to any Ivy League university and he'll be set. So,
dude, I don't think I got the money for that.
Scholarships, Matt. Scholarships. That's all there is. No. So like, I really like the idea of like there are different movement patterns that exist in all these different sports. You're doing different things. There are some similarities. Things do overlap, but there's some differences. That's why I love kids playing multiple sports in multiple seasons while they're young, and then as they get older, if we want to wedge down a little bit, that's fantastic. If we want to do multiple sports at once, maybe not the best idea, because you have to manage that workload. The kids that you're seeing that do get hurt, now you don't see them till really once after surgery.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we see them before, especially if we know they're going to be having surgery within our practice. So a lot of times we do some rehab with them, which is, it only sets them up to be a little bit stronger, have a little bit less anxiety when they get into the room. So
what are you noticing is there anything, are there big picture things that you're noticing with these kids? Like, man, they are all weak posterior chain. I guess I'm thinking ACL specifically. Like, is it just they are weak in the ass and hamstrings? Is that just the thing, or is there more here? Unilateral strength sucks, whatever.
All of that. I mean, it's all of the above. What we've noticed, and I think this is pretty specific in all sports, is the better balance you have, the less likely you are to get injured. So we do a lot of balance work. And this is written into all of our programs too. So from the PT standpoint and also from the performance, we do a lot of simulated RDLs. We do a lot of like banded like knees around bands around the knees, and we do some cone taps and stuff. So you have to have some resistance for the hips, but then also a lot of simulated balance. So that all of our athletes that simulated kettlebell pass, whatever it might be. So we do a lot of that, a lot of work on single leg strengthening, and then like you said, unilateral stuff. So reverse elevated foot squats. We do like reverse lunges, step ups. We do a power step up. All of those things are important, but the balance is a major piece of that. And then along with that is the foot. So take your shoes off and then start to use those feet. The intrinsic muscles of your feet are something that we really need. And then they're really weak. And so, when kids start having kind of fasciitis and it's, oh, my feet hurt, and I like them, my posterior tib, whatever it might be, that is a main part of that. So we try and do a lot of work with that and make sure we take care of our feet. And even when they come in, we're rolling the foot out, trying to, at least try and decrease that risk, a little bit of an injury. The other thing that we do is a ton of hip strengthening. And so, and that's, we know from, especially for anybody that's having knee and hip problems, if we can really focus on strengthening the hip, whether that's the glute max or glute med, we know that we can take away about 90% of just non-specific knee pain. So we need to be doing more of that. So the more you can do, the better off you can be. And a lot of times, like I tell parents and patients and stuff, it's like, you need to do this, and it's only going to take you 3 or 4 minutes. I'm not asking for 20 or 30 minutes. I'm asking for less than 5. If you can do that and get specific and consistent with it, then you're going to be better.
So, Matt, if kids are doing all these sports, why are they weak, Matt? What's going on?
So think about this. So like say we know that the hip strength is a big part of that. So but the glute med only is strengthening in the abductive and extension direction. You're like, well, I walk a lot, or my kid runs a lot. Okay, well that's that way. So which is more hip flexion and not the other way. So when we do band walks, when we do like lateral band walks, when we do diagonal stuff, whatever it might be, but then we're hitting that muscle. If you were just doing flexion extension stuff, so sagittal plane, for the people who have gone to like and know some of those things, it's not going to do the same muscle. And also, as muscular fatigue comes in, then you have less likelihood of you being able to control the movements you need to control. So you've lost movement control, especially think about the end of the game. It's very rare that ACLs are done on the first play. It's usually farther in, right? A quarter or 2 quarters in. It is always a guarantee that when you tear your ACL, it's the last play you play. And that's a Tim Hewitt thing. He always says, well, it's always going to be the last thing. Sure, this. So I think that the biggest things you can do is how do we train these kids? And it's not all about like the old school mentality. I'm going to beat you up in the weight room until you quit. That's not the way to make them better. You need to go a lower load, more reps. How do I get them to control and understand some of that stuff? Like we do our pre-lift stuff doing our performance side of it. One day is sprinting and the other day is plyometrics. And the plyometric stuff, the high level plyometrics, we always do in the beginning. When they are less fatigued, how can we get them neuromuscularly to understand that? Because neuromuscular fatigue is a real thing. And if you try and train them when they're neuromuscular fatigued, their body isn't understanding what they're doing. So if we can get them to train the right way, and like I said, it doesn't need to be a lot. And a lot of times, like for our kids, when they're coming in, if they're playing other sports, we even tell our parents, hey, maybe they need to take a couple weeks off. Have them go and just rest. But then they need to do their Fantastic Four stretching. They need to do their hip strengthening stuff. Make sure they're doing something 10 minutes a day. And so I think it's part of also being the bigger person in this picture and stepping out when you need to.
I want to get to more of what you guys do in the rehab process and that piece too. But I really like the idea of prevention, and I think that's and I know you can't always do that. We've had some goofy ACLs through the years. Outsides in volleyball who've gotten sets that they should have just let go, but they didn't, and they literally swung like this, and their foot was higher than their head, like when they landed, and it was like, oh, Malia Howe, I love you. Oh my gosh, what a great kid. She should have given up on this ball. She did not give up on that ball. and she blew the ACL through that process. And it's one of those things like, holy buckets. Anywho, I'm just right off. It does. And that's the stuff that, because it blows my mind. Because if you're like, hey, Adam, think back to how many kids in high school that you knew that blew their ACL. The answer is none. I don't know anyone. And I say that, but Kelly Miller, who was a year ahead of me at Sycamore High School, did tear her ACL. I can't remember. I think it was in college later. She ended up playing basketball at NIU. But like, it was so much less of a thing. And now it's a very common thing where, every fourth volleyball player is wearing a big knee brace, basketball the same, it seems to be girls more than boys, but both of them are just still too high. What's your plan with your kids moving forward? Pretend that I'm going to a lot of assumptions here. Pretend they want to play college sport. Okay. Not saying necessarily, Villanova basketball, but they want to, so you want to keep them healthy and driving. And so they have a solid high school career and they go on and, scratch that itch as a, college athlete and obviously get all that NIL money.
Yeah, I hope, right? So the way that we've done this, so Camden is 11, going to be 12 in May, is so he's already started our program. We start as young as 9. And we have a specific, so it's basically 16 weeks of a training program for young kids. We started with Dr. Yesis, who's down in Texas. And so he really prescribed what we call the 1x20 program. Coach Stu, who's the strength coach at North Scott High School, and he's, in my opinion, one of the best high school strength coaches in the country. So amazing. He's at North Scott High School. He's talks at NSCA stuff, events. He is unbelievably good. But one of the things, it's just maybe 15, 20 minutes west of North. Yeah, so he's in Iowa, and it's awesome. He's just a great guy. His weight room at the high school is unbelievable. But he and I can sit there and talk shop. I think the big thing you do is you get him into like what we do, and I got this from Coach Stu, is you get him into 1x20. So if you've ever heard of Zach DeChant, who is the strength coach at TCU for baseball, his book is called Moving Over Maxes. Get them to do movement proficiency. The best way you can improve confidence with kids is to make them more competent. And that's in everything. So that's not just in the weight room, that's not in sports, that's like in life. So make them more competent. So that's what we've chosen to do, especially for my son, is this. He's gone at least done one time a week for the last year. And he does our 1x20 program. And so right now, he's about ready to finish our 3x12 program. And so we go 1x20 phase 1, phase 2, 3x12 phase 1, phase 2, and then we get into some of our GPP stuff. And so then we have 6 variations of that, and then we get into our power training stuff. So we actually have it pretty regimented for these young kids coming through. It's easy for us to program and see that and understand what we're doing with those kids. And any of our coaches that come into that room can say, okay, you're at this way, this is the exercise you're doing, this is what you're doing, this is what you're doing. And so it's very controllable. And then for the kids, they are forced into moving correctly. So it has nothing to do with weight. It has to do with specificity of what we're doing. And a lot of parents are like, well, how are you going to make my kid, how's it going to be more like sport specific? Your kid is 9 or 10. It's going to be, this is just what your kid needs. He just needs to learn how, or she needs to learn how to move extremely well and get being proficient at that. That's the best thing we can do for them. So as Camden progresses, he won't do 3 or 4 different seasons at once. That's just not something that, as the values for our family, that's not what we do. So that's just a different thing. We value family time and being home and eating dinners together and doing stuff. Do we get to do that every weekend? Absolutely not. But by and large, we get to do a lot of that. So he won't do that. We're going to do a little bit more this next year. So in terms of being a little bit more advanced with the basketball stuff, but then it's a requirement. So we tell him, if you want to do a sport, these are the expectations for you. So he understands, he can look at his sheet and he knows what our warm-up is. He knows what our fantastic four stretching is. He knows all those things. He has to get that in on his own at least one time a week, plus a certain amount of, like, if he's in the basketball stuff, it's 30 minutes of like this specific routine stuff. And we've got some specific coaches that help us with that from the basketball side of it. And if you looked at, like, even Steph Curry, you talk to his dad, he didn't start playing AAU until he was a junior. Now that maybe decreases, playing, higher level basketball, maybe when he was in college, maybe. But guess what? He hasn't had. He hasn't had an ACL. He hasn't had an Achilles tear. He hasn't had any of those things. He's had bad ankles. But in some sports, you can't control when a person slides underneath you. That's just, you can't do anything about that. But what you can do is you can control their exposures. And I think, from if you listen to what his dad has talked about, he controlled the exposures to the infant degree. Now, I don't know if everybody's going to be able to do that because he could just shoot unbelievably well. But that's kind of some of the things you can do as a parent. Control their exposures. Get them in with a specific sport coach. If you really want to, if they have that love for basketball, we talk about that in our family, likes and loves. If it's a like, I'm probably not going to support that as monetarily and time commitment as I'm going to support love. Like for basketball, he wants me to go out and rebound for him when it's snowing. I'm like, kid, okay, I'll do this. But you're also telling us what you really want to do. In some of the other sports, it's what he wants to do as much, which is fine. I'm okay with that. But I'm also going to support that one the best way that I can. And then give him the training that he needs. But it's also those expectations. You will go do this, and you will go do this. And if it becomes to the point where I'm having to push him to do those other things, then we're out. Just because that's not the best thing for him, psychologically, all those different things. And also like the nutrition side of it is a big portion of this. But what can we get him to make sure he has 7 Fairlife sitting in the fridge? And so he grabs one every day when he comes home from school. Dude, that's how you support your body. Because if we're asking you to do all these things and you want to do all these things, then you have to support it the right way. And I think the support all the way around and looking at it as like a high performance entity, that's what you have to do. And you have to be willing and open to maybe what you think is the right way to do this isn't the right way. And there's a lot of stuff that we know now through research. Even think about like creatine. When we were young and you and I were going through school, everybody thought it was just going to kill our kids. We just didn't know. Now, creatine is the most researched supplement on the market. You can go to Thorne. So we use Thorne for the development project, and that's what Camden takes. We signed a partnership with them. Everything is NSF certified, so we know we're giving great supplements. But you look at the research from just a body side of it, and even for females, it's great for women as they age. But you have to be willing to change your stance on things, especially if the research is supportive and it's good quality research. And so that's kind of why we've started to move in that direction.
Yeah. I find it, and let's be clear, we empathize, that's the word I'm going for, with these busy families, because we're busy, you're busy, things going on. I cannot tell you how many of my athletes don't eat breakfast in the morning. And it drives me bonkers. They know they need to. They know they should. They often can't. They often choose not to. We do, working with VC United for every year for the last however many years, we've done some type of nutrition presentation, and we're to the point now we're 8 years in. It's been virtually the same presentation, like the same slides. We mix it up a little bit, tell a little different story. I might add a little bit here, there. And I got to the point this year, I'm like, we don't need to do it. We've talked about it. The kids get it. Like, this is not, it's the same kids year after year. There's no need. These seniors have heard me blab about this for the last 6 years since they've been here in 7th grade. Like, and then all of a sudden I'm having little conversations with them and they're like, yeah, Adam, I don't eat breakfast. And they say it like I don't, you never, that's like, you don't,
Yes.
like,
it's so hard. When we do our warm-ups, like with our kids, like last night, we ask each one of them 2 things. How much sleep did you get? And what did you eat for breakfast? And so there's Rachel, the first couple times, she goes, I didn't eat breakfast. And she was the only one in the room. And there's like 12 kids in the room. And then eventually, like I was talking to her mom last night, and her mom goes, she felt real awkward and kind of out of place when she was the only one that didn't eat breakfast. I'm like, because we're trying to get them to understand that it's the little decisions that you make. You may not think it's that much, but if your goal is to get stronger, be able to perform at your highest, these are the things that mean the most. And it's something you can do that's super easy that wins the day. You start your day out on the right foot. And we talk about that with a lot of these athletes and a lot of our like high-level athletes. We have the starting left tackle for Notre Dame. Charles is awesome. He comes back in, everybody's like, he's 6'8", 330. He's huge. But he's the nicest individual you'll ever meet. Super smart. But he will talk to these kids. So we have a kid, a guy that is a walk-on at Iowa State. And we had him talk to our Bettendorf football players that were working with us. And I said, what is the one thing that was like, holy crap, they're going to not allow me any leeway on this? And it was food. That was in the weight room, working hard. I don't have to coach effort. Like, that's not my job. Like, we don't have to coach effort. Campbell at Iowa State, he's like, you need to do your job, and your job is to do what we tell you. And if it's eating, and we need you to eat more protein or whatever it might be, that's what you have to do. And so that's what some of these kids are like. They've started just to figure that out. And when they really start to eat the right way, they're like, I feel so much better. I sleep better. I perform better. I'm getting stronger. All of my performance metrics, so our KPIs that we do for all of our testing every 6 weeks, everything keeps getting better. It's like, it's so simple, it will never work. And that's where we need to continue to get these kids to understand that. And so sometimes it's like, it's going to sound bad, almost like a public shaming, but not like directed at them. But they just, they know I'm the only one that's not doing this. And then my performance isn't as good.
So it's funny, you use the word KPI there. I think it's interesting. I have KPIs, you have KPIs. So listeners, if you don't know what we're talking about, so key performance indicators here. We look at them from, you the same force plate side of things in the way of, specific numbers, in the way of we want to make sure that they're training in the right way, and ways to get there, and let's say at the end of the day, the goal is, hey, we want to have a wonderfully rewarding, high school, possibly into college experience, with sport. We don't want it to end with frustration and quitting. We don't want it to end with injury and, again, more frustration. And just like you want to end, healthy, and you can then continue on with your life and, stay and, be a healthy human. You probably need to continue to work out past high school. Sorry, adult listeners, if you're listening and you haven't worked out since high school, I apologize. No shaming, but you probably should do something. But my point in this is that I think a lot of parents look at this and they look at their KPIs and be like, well, my daughter's doing club volleyball, check. And she works out at Oak, 3 days a week with volleyball. Hey, check. We take her to all the tournaments, check. And those are the KPIs versus the KPIs you and I look at. Are they eating breakfast consistently? Are they eating lunch consistently? Do they eat something before practice? Are they getting 7, ideally 8 hours of sleep every night? Are they, and supplementing as needed? Are they, but whatever it is, the stuff that you're doing for your 11-year-old, a lot of our high school kids aren't getting done. And, and high school kids run harder. There's more stress. There's more going on. There's more freedom. There's more flexibility. It's crazy. And now all of a sudden there's more put on them, and boom, then we have major injuries of things. And that's where it stinks.
So I think it's finding those specific metrics that can help kids, and especially like that. We want to teach them something that they can use later on in their life. We have kids all the time come back to us. And one of the things is you create an environment that pushes the kids outside their comfort zone, because no matter what you're doing, whether it's in business, it's your family life, all these things, it's going to push you outside your comfort zone. So how do you handle those things? And so that's what we talk about a lot with our athletes. But then like the healthy eating habits, all of those things are going to be so important for you even when you're done with sports. But do it now, get an understanding of that, and then say you're going to go play Division I basketball or volleyball. We work with the number 1 volleyball recruit in the state for Iowa. And the one thing that we really started to talk about is like, figure out the things that you know that they're going to want you to do it now, because then you transition there, because she's highly skilled in volleyball. Unbelievable. I think she had 24 kills in the state championship match. So she's good, right? So she just took it over. But it's like, do all those other things, because then the transition to college is so much easier. Understanding all those things. So those are, everything's different for each athlete, right? So I think that the more that we can do with those, and for us, a KPI, and this is going to, some parents, we explain it to our parents this way, but we actually track body weight for everybody, boys and girls. Part of this is one thing, especially for females. There's a lot of connotations, a lot of it's negative on the number. And the number really means nothing in terms of like what they're doing. And especially for these young athletes, we talk to them and we say, if your performance metrics are going up, your KPIs, so the ones that we look at, if everything's still going up, and then your performance on the field, the court, whatever it may be, those are all getting better, but then the number goes up a little bit, maybe that's what your body needs, because you're getting stronger, eating the right way, you're doing all those things. That number may do that. But on the flip side, say it goes up or way down, I may be the first one that knows that or sees it, and then that starts that conversation. And we have that with all the parents. And it's like, especially if it goes way down and we are nervous about something and their performance is going down, their KPIs are all messed up, and maybe that's the conversation we need to have with the parents. Like, hey, this is more than sport. Maybe she needs to go talk to somebody else or work with somebody else in terms of the dietary side, because we want them to be a healthy individual, and we're worried about them psychologically, emotionally, all those different things play a big part in that. And the nice thing is we've never had a parent be like, I don't want to do that. Because we're all like, hey, that's really nice, because we have that conversation with our kids and they don't always want to listen to it. It's like, well, because I'm not the parent. My kid doesn't always want to work with me, but that's why I take him into, for ADP. He works with another coach. He doesn't work with me. He needs to work with other people and see that we're all saying the same thing. It's just from a different mouth. So
fast forward 4 years from now, your kids in high school, 5, 6, 7 years from now. What are his daily KPIs in your eyes?
So we will, and we do this now. So screen time.
Screen time. Holy cow!
Amount of screen time. Are you hitting? And I'll pay for MyFitnessPal. I don't care. Is he hitting his dietary needs? Because that's important. Even if he's not playing a sport at that specific time, I even do my own MyFitnessPal to make sure that I'm doing the things. And I like the idea of training for specific events. So I turned 40 at the end of May. And so me and two of my best friends, we're going to go hike the Grand Canyon.
Nice.
I want to make sure I am in the best shape and the best way to do this as I can possibly be. So that's the same thing with Camden.
Yeah.
So it'll be a dietary side of it. It'll be a sleep goal every day. And then it'll be a screen time. And then is he doing the things that he wants us to monetarily support him with, whether that's being part of an AU program or paying for a basketball coach. So are you doing the things, the expectations that are along with that? We, as a family, don't pay for chores because those are expectations. So when he leaves our home and he goes to college, he's going to be expected to do his dishes and put his laundry away and do some of those things. So those expectations, that's building that competent side of it so he knows exactly how to do that.
Yeah.
And so then that's just part of what we do, because I need to make sure he's a functioning part of society. And some people say, well, maybe you're just hard on him. I'm not hard on him, because the things that he can do now at 11, there's a lot of 18-year-olds that I work with that can't do that.
Yeah.
So we're preparing him for the next stage, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I think that all of those things that you can do are the best things for your kids.
Yeah. Sorry, let's summarize there really quick. So on a daily basis, I'm a parent of a high school kid. I check in on them. I don't need to helicopter them and like that. That's not what we're saying. But we're checking in on. So you said nutrition stuff. Like, are they eating meals? If you want to track it, you could track it. not that hard. Kids are pretty savvy with technology. Lots of different apps out there to make sure, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, blah, blah, blah. Sleep, you mentioned. Screen time. God, that's a big one, Matt. That is a big one. I heard a stat the other day that the average, and I forgot how old the average 10-year-old is outside less than your average prisoner. That's which I don't know what the average prisoner is. An hour a day, 2 hours a day. I don't know what it is, but the average kid is not that at all, which is crazy to think about. Sorry, back to the KPIs. Nutrition stuff, sleep, screen time, and then just are they doing their sport? Are they doing that thing?
There's specific expectations. Yeah, it's like Cam's expectation every day is to do to take care of the dishes, unload the dishwasher, unload the sink. That's it. That's the job. So yeah, I think it's making it as simple as you possibly can make it, but make it sure it's teaching them the things that they need to know. So, and that's like from the weight room side of it, it's all the same thing. And Joe Cripp, who's one of our strength coaches, amazing strength coach. He was Jimmy Garoppolo's center in college, right? Pretty high level. And then he also Eastern Illinois. Yep. So, but then he was also a strength coach at West Point at Army for 5 years. Just awesome. But our saying is, it's so simple, it'll just never work. And so try and keep it as simple as you possibly can. And so make sure you're doing all the little strengthening things. It doesn't need to be all the time. Also, if you're doing a sport where you have to run a lot, you might want to stretch. So we do a Fantastic Four. So it's for your piriformis, or your glutes. You have hamstrings, you have quads, and then we have groin. And then, especially younger kids, get some calf stretches. So it's 2 muscles that go into the lower calf, and so that's your gastroc and your shoulders. You could stretch for 10 minutes, do it twice a day. You will decrease your risk for injuries by a significant amount. So, yeah. I think understanding the weight room components when kids are coming back, a lot of times what happens is, say your kid gets hurt. They go to the doctor, then they go to PT, and then the PT says, hey, they don't have pain, they can run, they can do all this stuff. And then the parent says, all right, we're going to play in a game this weekend. Yeah, we've missed a little bit, especially depending on what the PT is doing. Say you hurt your knee, but it's not an ACL, it's not something catastrophic, right? Are they testing you and doing it and looking at objective measures? The crazy stat, which is still mind-boggling to me, is that 50% of the PTs in the world still don't do any testing that's objective. They just look at them and say, you know what, you look good. The looks are deceiving, and then they do these manual muscle testing things. And you say, well, you're a 4 out of 5. Based on what? How hard they pushed into your hand? Like, that's not a way to test these kids. You can go out and buy a dynamometer for $350 and test these kids. And then you look at what's called limb symmetry index, and we have a whole protocol. If we have a kid that comes in, we test them, we do this, they need to get to 90% before we send them back to sports. That may only take 3 weeks. But if you're not testing, you don't know. And that's the biggest thing is what are they doing in the PT? Are they working out with just 2-pound dumbbells? Or are they, like for our kids, we make it so hard because then when they get done with us, they're like, my sport is way easier than what it was in PT. That's what it should be, because then you're ready to go into the next phase. And if you don't have a PT that's willing to do that or is able to do that, find a good sports performance program. Like with you guys at Oak, you guys are using Hawking Dynamics plates, just like we are. That stuff gives you just valuable, objective information. You can't cheat it. It is what it is. You do it or you do not. And that's the biggest thing for us. And that's how we look at our KPIs. It's how we test them. And so I think that's the best option you have is find a program that's going to get you in there a couple times a week, do it for at least a month. If you can do it for 2 months, great. And then you're ready to go. And you know that. And that's the role of the weight room that is just underutilized and I think oversimplified. because we think, oh, well, they're just ready to go. They look great. They don't have pain when they run until they do again, because that's what inevitably happens. They're just not ready.
Yeah. We have one of our volleyball coaches. She played at Nebraska, won a national championship. She was a little bit okay at volleyball. Had a twin sister, ironically, too, which is funny. Some crazy genetics that they brought to Nebraska. Played professionally overseas. Amber at 6'1", 6'2", 6'3". She's taller than me. Let's be clear. In high school, back squatted 2 1/4 for 5. In college, working under Boyd Epley and his people at Nebraska, she got up to like 275 for 5, which for 100, I'm guessing weights here. Maybe she played at 180, 185, back in the day for her back squatting 100 pounds more, for fives. Like, you know how many back issues she had? That many. You know how many knee issues she had? That many. Like it just, if you're that strong of an athlete, and not saying you can't hurt yourself walking downstairs, because you can, but weird things happen. The set that's here, and I'm knocking over water bottles now. Like it's a thing. But if you have that base, and it's nice to say, if you can do it before something major happens, because I mean, and we've benefited sadly from it, because we don't have the integrated PT here. But if you go down the hallway, we have ORS physical therapy down the hall, and if kids get hurt, they go there, but then they eventually bring them right here. We're not under the same umbrella, but the way you are, but like the return to play piece for us has blown up. Which is good financially for us, but it sucks for all these kids getting hurt, which is just driving me bonkers. So anywho, Matt, I'm just pontificating here. That's why we do this podcast, just so I'm able to vent this, just so I don't take this home to my wife, because she doesn't hear it.
You're not wrong. That's the problem. And there's not enough people are talking about it. And so that's my goal. What can we do? How can we show this? We actually hired a business coach, Jeff and I did, and it's been awesome. But the biggest thing they've been talking to us about, you have to show people that you can fix and have a solution for the problem that's out there. And that really got me thinking more and more. I'm like, it's not that I just make you stronger, faster, all that stuff. It's that we are doing the things that the research is telling us to do. And it's something that's going to work. And it really does work if you do it correctly. So have a solution and do it.
Mic drop on that one. Matt, people want to follow you guys and all the great things you guys are doing. Where do they go?
So my own personal Instagram is the Athletes PT. And then, for athletes,
any underscores or periods in there?
The _athletes _PT. And then for the performance side of it, it's ADP QC.
ADP QC. QC Quad City ADP Athlete Development Project.
Yep.
Matt, I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate people hearing this from, again, I feel like I shout this out and do all the strength coach stuff, and we're talking lifting heavy weights and keep working hard, and you got to eat, you got to, sleep and rest and recovery. But you're the guy that sees all the injury stuff. And, so to have your opinion is very valuable, and I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, always reach out. I think that's the other big thing is reach out, find somebody that really knows what they're doing.
And some are very good. Here's what I will say about PTs. I could say the same about strength coaches.
Right.
There are some very, very good switched on. And then there are less ones that are much less switched on. And so that's why I like what you guys are doing with, us the same with the force plate stuff. Like, this is no longer am I just looking at Adam's eye. Oh yeah, you look good. Like, let's put you on the plate. Let's actually get some numbers. And either what we're doing is working and yay, or what we're doing is, and then we need to readjust and, reassess where we're at.
Yeah. And looking at max effort stuff, looking at 1 rep maxes, things like that. It's not the way to do it anymore. No one does that.
Yeah.
At big level universities, they are doing so much more, and it's more of that sports science stuff. Yeah. Like in the Quad Cities, there's only 2 of us, only 2 PT clinics that have force plates. That's it. Yep. And the other guy that has them is the guy that I train. So,
but the high school weight rooms during PE class,
Well, guess what? Those are a lot of the kids that I'm seeing. I see a lot of them because they're getting hurt.
Oh gosh, we're going to hang up on this podcast, but just to wrap up, I had 3 kids in 1 week get injured in high school PE, in high school lifting. I started flipping desks. I'm like, what? I can't. One kid was jumping on the plyo boxes that Velcro together, and they weren't Velcroed together, and toppled, wrist fracture. One girl went slamming into another guy during like a fun warm-up they were doing, some type of taggy warm-up thing, blah, blah, blah. And the other girl got buried on a back squat because they were maxing out. So listeners, I'm sorry. We should be ending on a more positive note here. Damn it. Sorry. Our fault. Matt, thanks again, buddy. I appreciate it. Listeners, thanks for listening. We'll check in on the next one.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for listening to another episode of Oak Performance Radio. Don't forget to check us out on the social at Oak Performance and online at www.oakstrength.com/Oak Performance. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.